Okay guys, so I'm going to go over how to use our AC recovery machine here. If you remember this guy, we talked about him in class. This is how we take our refrigerant out of our vehicles and how we also vacuum the system, draw the system down into a total vacuum, and then this is also how we recharge the AC system. So we'll just go over the basics of how this guy works. So step one obviously is plug it into the wall. It does work off of electricity as far as the machine itself. The gauges themselves do not need electricity. So if you're using this machine just for the gauges to get pressure readings, you do not need to connect it to power. But if you want the machine to work, you do need to connect it to power. We need to turn it on, and the screen will take a few minutes to come on and power up. It'll go through its startup procedure. The next thing we need to do is hook up our AC hoses. So remember, our car here has service ports. We have a red hose, we have a blue hose. The red hose goes to the high pressure or the hot side service port. The blue hose goes to the low pressure or the cool side service ports. The service ports look like these. They are different sizes. This is the low side that I have disconnected. The high side on this car is right here. The high side is the larger port than the smaller port. They might have caps on them. They might be black or they might be color coded. Red for high side, blue for low side. But regardless, we need to hook up our hoses. Our hoses work just like our shop airlines. We pull back to release or to attach. We have a knob on the end of our hose. We need to make sure these are closed. Okay? You can see right here it says open. We turn it clockwise, the way a clock spins. If we want to close it, we turn it counterclockwise. Make sure these are closed before you attach them. Okay? So we're going to hook up to our low side service port, push it on, give it a little wiggle, make sure it's on there, and now I can open our port. And you might hear a little tiny hiss as we open these. And then once we open these, we can come over to our machine and we can see what our actual pressures are right here. So our pressures is, we're going to look at these. This is what the system has in it right now with it off. Now temperature out here is about 80-85 degrees. It's kind of warm out here right now. So you see our pressures are, this one says about 95, this one says about 100. They're close to whatever our ambient temperature is. So if it's a colder day, then these pressures will be lower. If it's a hot day or if the car has just been running, your pressure is going to be higher. Okay? So now we've got our hoses hooked up to our car, our machine's on. Now you see we have this display screen right here, and I'm trying to get the glare off of it. But you see right here, we've got different things we can do. We can go full automatic, which means the machine is going to do everything automatically. That's not necessarily a good thing. We have a recover, we have vacuum, we have charge, or we have next. Also up here, this tells us how much refrigerant we have in the internal tank. There's an internal tank to this machine. It also tells us how much we can recover. There's a 20-pound capacity for this internal tank. So we have 8 pounds in the tank. We can add another 12 if we have to. Okay? So step one, we're going to recover. So you hit the button under whatever icon you want to do. So I'm going to hit recover. Again, you have to have both hoses open. Otherwise, it'll just recover the refrigerant in those hoses, not the actual car. So very important to have these open. Okay? So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to hit under recover. Now you see it says, do not save service record. Perfect. That's what I want. Now some shops, they want you to save a new service record every vehicle you do. just for their records, client records, etc., etc. We don't want to, so we're going to hit the button under the check mark. Check mark means yes, X means no. So I'm going to hit yes for do not save. Okay? Connect both service hoses to AC system being serviced. Open both coupler valves. It even reminds you, check mark means yes or okay. It's going to check inlet pressure. Please wait. Low side clear in progress, which means it is making sure there's no obstructions to the low side. If I need to stop for whatever reason, there's a pause down here on the end. I can pause this. Otherwise, the machine is pretty automatic. It'll do its thing as it does its thing. So we have low side clear going on still. This takes about 30 seconds to a minute. And now you see it says reading tank weight. Do not disturb. It's looking for where it starts so that we know exactly how much refrigerant we're recovering. And it shows you how much refrigerant is coming out of this car. And you see as we start to recover, our gauges are slowly dropping. Because we're pulling refrigerant out, our pressures are going lower. And you see it's showing us we're up to 2.03 pounds right now pulled out. How much does this car take? Remember, there's a sticker under the hood that tells us how much refrigerant this car takes. It is 1.16 pounds right there. So we'll see if we get 1.16 pounds out of this. If we do, awesome. We know the system was properly charged and it has no leaks. If we get less out of it, that means either we have a leak or we didn't get a proper full charge in. You see we're up to 0.562 right now. Our pressures are getting lower and lower. And you may hear the machine do some little spurts as it releases internal tank pressure. No, it's not releasing refrigerant. It just builds or releases pressure. You see our low is almost empty. Our high is almost empty. Have we got to 1.16 pounds yet? No, we're at 0.802 right now. Will we get to 1.16? I don't know. We'll see if this was properly charged. You see our low is right in here in the 0. Our high is right at 0. We're 0.8, but fluctuating a little bit. Okay, so we've now got our stage 2 recovery going on right now. Sorry for the little lapse in the video. Our air compressor for the shop kicked on. But after we get stage 1 recovery done, it goes into what's called a second stage recover. Okay, and that second stage takes us about 5 minutes. And I know it's kind of hard to see on the screen here, you just have to trust me. But what's happening now is our pressures got down to 0. Okay, and the machine saw that. So now it's doing a partial vacuum, or it's actually pulling the whole system into a vacuum just to make sure that we have all the refrigerant out of the system. So if you look at our top, our high side, it's a little bit below 0. But down here on our low side, you see our gauge actually goes below 0. It actually goes down to a 30. And what that means is 30 inches of mercury. That's vacuum. So 29 inches of mercury is a perfect vacuum. That's about where we are right now. The reason we draw the system into a vacuum during recovery is so that we can boil out any refrigerant that is mixed in with the oil, so that when we remove our components, if that's what we're doing, we don't have a big explosion of refrigerant that may have been left in the system that rebuilt some pressure. Okay, I've personally had that. You vac a car down, go home for the night, come back in the morning, you take one of the AC hoses off, and poof, you have pressure in the system all of a sudden again. That's because you had refrigerant boil out of the oil. Okay, so what this machine does, it vacuums the system for 5 minutes so that we get all of the refrigerant, or as much as we can, out of the oil. Okay, also this lets you know if you have a leak, because if it does not come down here and pull almost 30 inches of mercury right here on the low side, say if we only drop down to the 10 or somewhere between 10 and 30, that's showing us that we have air getting into the system somehow, and we cannot achieve a perfect vacuum. So that's telling us right there we've got a leak we need to fix. But obviously this car, we're down here at the 30, so probably no leaks. Now, yes, it was low. It only had 0.82 pounds of refrigerant in it. That is definitely not 1.16. So either we have a very, very tiny leak, or we did not get the correct charge. This car, shop car, who knows? Because the system's been taken apart and put back together so many times. Is it a leak? Who knows? Did somebody put the wrong charge in it? We don't know that either. But leak detection might be able to tell us if we use some of our leak detectors and saw if we had any leaks in any components of our system. But anyway, so we'll let this guy run for our second stage recovery. Okay, so now our second stage recovery is done, and our screen is telling us right here, it says recover complete, refrigerant 1.105 pounds. So we pulled out a little bit more after our stage 2, so we're almost to 1.16, which is awesome. Okay, it says check oil drain bottle right here, drain amount, how many ounces. So what we need to do is we need to look down here at our oil drain. Okay, there's a line right here of oil. You can see the different colors. I looked, I should have showed you this before, but I did. No oil came out. Sometimes oil gets pulled out with the refrigerant, sometimes not. It just depends on, you know, the vehicle and the system. But right now, we're right at the 30 mark right here as far as milliliters, or almost 1 ounce, just slightly over 1 ounce. So I can look at this and see if my level goes up, how much oil got pulled out during the recovery, and how much oil I need to add. Okay? So I can come back up here, 0 ounces because none came out. Okay? I look at my gauges, and it's been a couple minutes since our stage 2 finished. Look, my gauge right here is still at the 30. That's perfect. That's exactly what I want. That's showing me there is no leak in the system. There's no air getting back into the system. Okay? So I hit my forward button right here, and it takes me back to my main menu. Now, if I had removed a component of the system here, if I changed a line or changed the compressor or something, I have opened the system up. I have put air in the system. Okay? I have to pull that air out of the system because air and refrigerant and oil do not mix. Okay? So you have to pull all the air out of the system. Air also has moisture in it. Moisture is bad. It reacts with the oil and the refrigerant and causes acids that can build up in the system and cause damage. Okay? So I have to get all the air and all of the moisture out of my system. I do that with the vacuum button right here. Now, if I touch the vacuum button, you see it's going to say checking inlet pressure. Do not save service record. Vacuum time, it's by default 10 minutes. I can make it 15, I can make it 20, I can make it 1 minute. Default is about 10 minutes. That's good for a quick job, you know, change the compressor or whatever. 10 minutes is fine. If the system's been open for more than a day, you probably need 15 or 20 minutes. Okay? And this will even let you do a vacuum leak test to where it'll draw the system in a vacuum and basically wait and let you know if there is any kind of leak over a period of about an hour. Okay? But if I wanted to vacuum, I would hit the check mark and it would run for 10 minutes. If I wanted to change that, I can go down here on my buttons and I'm going to put in 0015. So I'm going to have 15 seconds of vacuum time, okay? Because I didn't remove anything, and just for this video, I'm just going to show you how the vacuum runs, okay? So I got 15 seconds. I'm going to hit the check mark. You'll hear a pump running, and our gauges were right where they needed to be to begin with, so we're not going to have any movement. If they were back at 0, this 0 would draw them back into a vacuum. Okay, now it says vacuum complete, leak test not performed because I did not select it. I hit the play button, and now I'm back to main menu. Now I need to charge. So what I need to do to charge, hit the button, checking inlet pressure, please wait, because again, I don't want to have pressure in the system. Do not save service record. Okay. I can enter the amount of refrigerant that I want to go in. I can select high or low side that I want to charge on. I can also tell how much oil to put in the system, and I can do that by moving this keypad. Okay? But I want to put 0116 into the system on the high side. So I hit my check mark. And you see it says reading tank weight, do not disturb. Again, it has to get an exact starting point. And then you'll see as soon as refrigerant starts to go in this car, my gauges are going to pop up. High side first because we're charging on the high side. Low side will eventually catch up. And then you also see it shows how much is going in. So we're like 0.9. Now we're 1.0. Now it's going to pause for a second and get another exact weight. And then it's going to add a fraction of a pound each time until we get to exactly 1.16. So this part takes a minute or two. I'm charged 1.07. You'll hear a click. Now I'm 1.091, 1.109, 1.122, and it's slowly building up because we don't want to put more in it than it's supposed to have. 1.157, and there we go. So now you get to this screen, press continue to hose equalize, press abort to hose compensate. For me, this machine is too automatic. The real world, we're done. We have, look at our pressures are good. We have a full system right now, so we are good. So for me, I literally turn the machine off right now, okay? So I'm just gonna turn it off. Now I'm gonna hop in the car and start the car, and then we're gonna come back out and we're gonna check our pressures. So here we are in the car. We're going to fire this thing up. Make sure our AC is going to be on. There's our AC on. I don't need to worry about minimum or maximum AC, but there are systems on. So let's go see what our pressures are now. Okay, so we're out here. The car is running. AC is on. My fans, I can feel my fans. My cooling fans are running, so the system appears to be working. But how do I know? I can check my pressures. Like I said, we do not need the machine to be on or plugged in to check pressures. But right now, my high side is about where I want it at 150. My low side right here is about where I want it at 30. For me, ideally, I want the high side around 150 to 200. The low side, I kind of want somewhere between 30 and 50, okay? But right here, good running system. My low is right at almost 30. My high is right at almost 150. My needles aren't bouncing around, which is telling me my expansion valve, my compressor, it's all working exactly like it should. And I have perfect pressures. So, AC job is now done. Okay? So what I would do is, I could turn the car off. I could leave it running. It doesn't matter when disconnecting the hoses. But to disconnect hoses, just remember, turn the valve counterclockwise. Then you're going to grab, pull, and release. Okay? Again, turn the valve counterclockwise. Now the high side, sometimes you get a little pop of pressure because there's a little bit of pressure left in the hose. You're going to pull and release. Don't that little pop scare you, okay? And we're going to put our hoses back. If this car had caps, we put the caps back on the AC fittings. We don't want dirt getting in them. The low side was missing, so I don't have a low side cap, but you would screw the cap back on and continue whatever you were doing with the car. But right now, the AC is working just like it should.